Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer for Deloitte's Government and Public Services. And today I'm delighted to have with me Ram Iyer, the Chief Data Officer for the Department of Food and Drug Services. Ram, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Data literacy continues to come up, Ram, as a unique challenge in most CDOs that I talk to, right? And it's no longer just a work skill. It has become a life skill that you need pretty much in the digital age that we live today. What are some of the other challenges that you face in day-to-day in your CDO role? And I'm asking that because, every organization is different. While there are some CDO challenges that I hear constantly repeated, I'm sure there are some that are unique to your organization and to your role. Would you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think our challenges are, you hear the standard things, right? That, you've got to learn how to work the federal system or the government systems in terms of procurement, talent, etc. My challenge is slightly different. I think we have tremendous potential within the agency. We have lots and lots of highly trained, as I mentioned, quantitatively inclined people who have joined the agency with a mission and with the view to make a difference. So my job as the CDO is to make sure that some of those people and their skills are put to use to their full potential. It's a unique challenge. I see that as an opportunity as much as a challenge. And our early indications are we've done a good job by really being a catalyst, nurturing the growth and offering the right forums, removing the friction in the system so that they can really perform to their potential. To me, that is the biggest challenge, and it's a great opportunity.
What a great perspective, Ram. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to pivot slightly onto a different topic right now. So I know FDA has had several digital strategies recently, including your Leadership Modernization Action Plan, the Cybersecurity Modernization Action Plan, and your Data Modernization Action Plan. You've been the CDO for about 3 years now. You've published your data strategy as well as launched several successful data-driven initiatives. In your mind, what is the value of publishing a data strategy? And what are some of the steps that you would recommend organizations take after releasing their data strategy?
Yeah. I think this is also one of the examples where the process is equally important or maybe even more important than the output. Because just like I mentioned about the master data approach that we are taking, when we built our strategy, we did not do that in isolation. We took a lot of input from our internal stakeholders. We took their perspective into consideration. And through that process, we actually got buy-in for our implementation. So it's important that the process is collaborative and it's inclusive. That really helps. So that I would certainly recommend that. And the second thing, especially with the federal agencies, this becomes truly a public document. And it allows us to test our implementation against the North Star that we establish using these published documents. It has to be at a strategic level, at a high enough level to cover and adapt to new things that are coming up. Because when we published it, AI was not as much of a hype as it is today. So, but we still can fit that into our strategy, right? So it is very consistent. So it has to be at the level, but at the same time, it should not be so high a level that you cannot use it to implement. So we've tried to strike that balance. So what I would recommend for people is focus on the process, because that helps you do with change management, and keep it at the right balance between not having to require you to publish a document every 2 years, and the ability to implement and use it as a North Star.
Thanks, Ron, for sharing that. Are there specific projects in your mind that you are most excited about advancing coming out of either your data strategy or other operational needs that you could expand on?
Yeah, the one I'm truly excited about is what I've observed in the last 2 to 3 years. FDA moves from one particular public challenge to another one, and many of them come out of nowhere. So it is difficult for us to predict what would come today, tomorrow. So it is important for us to create a system that is nimble and can respond faster than what we've traditionally been able to do. And to that effect, what we are doing is, instead of responding to every problem as if it's a new problem and it becomes a kind of an episodic exercise, I'm trying to create a set of playbook and processes supported by strong data foundation and a strong talent, so we can create the search capacity when there is a shortage for a particular item, or when there is a recall for a particular product, etc. How can we do it faster, cheaper, and then we can learn from each iterative exercise so that the next time we respond, it's faster and better and cheaper for the taxpayer. I'm really excited that we made great progress in that. We are launching a service. We call it the Data Analytics as a Service. It's an internal service. And we have taken the data, the process, the talent, and the ability to operate in that framework as a key consideration. And we are testing it on one or two problems already. And we think that it has a great promise to meet some of the goals that I mentioned. So I'm really passionate about that. A subset of that is the talent scaling that I mentioned. I mentioned about, we have about 36 data scientists that we could say are certified and can work on type of problems that we want them to work on. But we would like to turn that into 100 to 200 in the network who can really provide that type of a search capacity. But also, equally important, while we don't need the search capacity, they're actually helping to create the data culture, to solve the problems in their own offices and centers using the tools that we have provided. And we will continue to invest in those through a central funding rather than asking for piecemeal funding from each of the groups. So those are the two areas I'm really passionate about. I think by doing this, we create that positive flow that will sustain itself without requiring the central supervision and the central control.
Ram, you made me think of something else as you were talking about that, and this ties back to, upskilling and your data strategy efforts that are focused on AI. You mentioned AI as a strategic area and of responsibility for your office as well. As you are implementing your data strategy, are there specific initiatives in which FDA is implementing AI specifically? And are there any examples that you're able to share with the audience?
Yeah, we have quite a few examples of use of AI. What we want to look at AI at multiple levels, right? One is on the operations. I think on the operations, we can learn and we can test some smaller models. And I think we will be a little more aggressive in that area. Then there is the productivity side. There are capabilities from the large vendor that are coming up. We will be considering those as part of our productivity, whether it's in the office suite or it is in some of the other operational areas. So those will be certainly considered. But there's a larger issue on the policy side, when it comes to regulation of the devices or, submissions, etc. Those will take longer. Those we'll have to be very diligent. The centers will lead those efforts and we'll be supporting them. And we are also working with multiple agencies and multiple, I would say, private public partnerships to make sure that there is a collection of thinking, because all of us are learning through this. We can't say anybody has a perfect answer. So through our sharing, we'll be able to apply that. So to that effect, we have formed AI governance and guidance board that is meeting to help to identify the right use cases and also implement them. And through those, learn what is right for right use of AI within the agency. We also have a guiding principle, and the guiding principle is faster is not always better. So we don't want to jump into everything just because it is fast. And easier is not always the best, because sometimes the easy solution could be a lazy solution, and we don't want to be lazy about the due diligence that we need to apply in some of these areas. So we will take those into considerations in everything that we do. So that's kind of a long answer to what we want to do with AI. But I would say right now the focus is much more on the operational side and learn from that before we apply it into the policy and the regulation side.
That's helpful. Ram, you're talking about collaboration and these governance bodies, which includes FDA and external parties. Is that specifically for like AI specific topics, or is that collaboration extend on to other topics which may involve academia or other industry partners?
It's all of the above. FDA has been a leader, like some of the other agencies within the federal government, in partnering with the academia, NGO, the universities and the CERCs and others we have. We've done a fantastic job, and I think we have the framework to do the same in some of our AI specific areas, right? And that applies to even some of the data work that we are doing. So we actually even created something called an AI playbook. It's going to require some modifications based on some of the recent developments on the AI space, but we have the framework already. And that was done in collaboration with some of the universities. So we already have a very deep knowledge of that and how to do it. And we just continue to expand that.
Of the focus on collaboration, I mean, I'm a true believer that, in some cases, the best growth happens when you get government, academia, and industry to come together to find solutions. And I think your examples were exactly hitting those. Ram, I know I have several other questions I can go on discussing for quite a while, but as we look to wrap this session up, I want to ask you one final question. You've been in the role for the CDO for 3 years. If we had to go back memory lane, and if you had to restart this role, are there any things that you would do differently? Are there any things that you want to reflect over just now as lessons learned for the audience?
Yeah. I think looking back, I probably fell into this myth that when you come to the government, it's going to be tough to find good talent and it's tough to get things moving. My experience is actually kind of the opposite. Of course, there are pockets of that speed issues, but when there is an emergency, when there is a real urgent need, we move. I don't have experience outside of FDA, but I can tell you for FDA, we move very fast. And we move with that sense of urgency that is on par with anything that I have seen in private industry. The second thing, I wish I had a better appreciation of how much talent that already exists. Because I started in a virtual environment, I did not have the interactions that I would have liked to have with so many of the great talented folks across the agency. And if I had known all the great talent that was available, I think I would have built my network faster, better, to solve some of the bigger problems. So I would say those are the two big learnings for me. And if I were to, redo some of that, those are the things I would have appreciated and leveraged even more.
Well, fantastic advice and takeaways, Ram. And thank you for breaking that myth. Government does have a plethora of good talent. So thank you for emphasizing that. Ram, I can't say thank you enough for joining us today and sharing your experiences and insights with the audience. I hope we stay in touch and maybe have another version of this interview soon. But for the time being, audience, please continue to join me in watching other interviews posted both on cdomagazine.tech as well as on Deloitte GPS CDO's website. Ram, thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about our strategy.